This documentary is to inform you of the facts concerning Mary Stockum. Our objective is to dispel the myths, to tell you the facts surrounding her death, and to stop the vandalism at the Stockum Cemetery. In this tape of the graveyard, you can see what vandals have done to these monuments. It is our contention this type of destruction is not warranted at a cemetery and should be stopped. Mary Stockham's maiden name was Anna Maria Litzen. She was born in 1821. On December 24, 1839, at the age of 18, she married Christopher Stockum. They had one child that we know of, according to the History of Coshocton County, published in 1881. His name was Adam, and he later became a prominent farmer in Coshocton. Mary died August 29, 1863, at the age of 42. She lived a full and normal life. Christopher later remarried. When his second wife died, he put up a better marker for her. In doing this, he felt like he had slighted Mary because her gravestone was not as nice as his second wife's. To correct the situation, he replaced Mary's original marker and put the old stone at the edge of the cemetery against the fence. The new gravestone has since been torn off of the base by vandals and has been thrown to the edge of the woods. These facts therefore explain why there are two gravestones for Mary Stockum. The original gravestone has since disappeared, but the base is still at the side of the fence where it should always remain. There is a myth that Mary Stockum killed her husband. We researched that myth, and we found that Christopher died November 12, 1878, 15 years after Mary's death. In the book entitled Historical Collections of Coshocton County, published in 1876, there's a chapter dealing with the shocking murders in Coshocton County. There are no stories listing or even remotely suggesting any murders connected with the Stockum name. Another myth says that Mary Stockum killed her children. We also researched that myth. We found that her son Adam was a prominent man in Coshocton. We also know that he outlived his mother because he married 14 years after his mother's death. These legends have made people curious about the cemetery, and as a result, it has become a popular meeting place. However, some people cause problems at the cemetery which have brought up legal questions. We interviewed Sheriff Bill Hoop and questioned him about the trespassing laws, and that the Stockum Cemetery is private.
This section of law makes it clear that a trespass is not excused simply because the property involved is public rather than privately owned. It is well settled that property owned by a state or a political subdivision is not automatically open to all members of the public, but is subject to limitations on access and use, which are reasonable in light of its purpose. That decision came out of a case of Adderley versus Florida, where some people had been involved in this same type of trespass that we're talking about.
Now, is the Stockum Cemetery is a private cemetery?
I think it's partially private, but I think it has, the township trustees have some responsibility in its control, as there are many cemeteries very much like that over the county. They have been more or less a private burial ground, but also the trustees do have some responsibility and have assumed some by helping keep them clear and so on. Also, veterans groups have taken on some responsibility by placing markers and flags in the cemeteries. And many of these markers they were bronze markers and have been stolen. They've ended up in junkyards. Some of them we have recovered, some we have not.
Since there's so much vandalism at the Stockum Cemetery, we asked the sheriff about the law and penalty for desecration of a grave.
Desecration. A, no person without privilege to do so shall purposely deface, damage, pollute, or otherwise physically mistreat any of the following. Number 1, the flag of the United States or of this state. 2, any public monument. 3, any historical or commemorative marker, or any structure, thing, or site of great historical interest. 4, a place of worship or its furnishings. Number 5, a place of burial or a burial marker. 6, a work of art or museum piece. 7, any other object of reverence or sacred devotion. B, whoever violates this section is guilty of desecration, and this is a misdemeanor of the 2nd degree.
Okay.
What is the penalty for that?
The misdemeanor in the 2nd degree would have a maximum sentence of 90 days in jail and $750 fine.
We also asked Captain Bob Wilson of the Coshocton County Sheriff's Department what types of complaints he has had about the Stockum graveyard.
We have answered numerous calls to the Mary Stockum Cemetery, beer parties, dope parties, what have you. I have spent many nights in the cemetery watching for drug buys to go down. We had information that that was a drop point, a selling point of the drugs. I have seen the younger people out there and some older people at that cemetery, drinking beer, throwing their beer cans around, or what have you. One instance, we went out there one time looking for a marijuana field that was supposed to be behind the cemetery. And on the way into the cemetery on that particular morning, we found 6 dogs that someone evidently the night before had hung in the trees around the cemetery. They have built fires on some of the bigger tombstones in the cemetery, which is all in violation of the law. One morning we were called to the cemetery by a township trustee who had found a shovel, lantern, and a grave that had been partially dug. The full length of the grave had been dug 6 foot and had been dug about 1 foot deep. And evidently they had been scared off by somebody. They threw their shovel over the fence and their lantern and left them there.
Finally, the sheriff had some personal viewpoints about the graveyard.
It's a place that's held in reverence by many people who have someone buried there. And I can't think of anybody in the school or anywhere else that has someone buried, as a mother or father or some loved one buried, would like to have someone out there dancing on the grave and having a big time. And I just think if people would think of it in that manner, that possibly they would refrain from that kind of conduct.
This program was designed to inform you of the facts about Mary Stockum, and also to let you, the public, know just what is going on out at that cemetery. We as a concerned group hope through this program to discourage the vandalism that is taking place at the Stockum Cemetery. We have shown that there was nothing unusual about Mary Stockum. She led a normal and full life. The story behind the 2 gravestones can be easily explained. As a matter of fact, all the stories can be proven wrong if you just take time to research for the facts as we did. As for the vandalism, it should be stopped so that Mary Stockum can rest in peace.